All right, kiddos. Hope everyone's doing all right. I have four more functions to introduce you to. They're all dependent upon sine and cosine, and we'll start to kind of think about what they are and how we evaluate tangent, cotangent, secant, and cosecant of angles. Okay, so here we go. Let's define the tangent, and we write it as such. We pronounce it tangent, and we write it as tangent of x. Right? Remember, we take tangents, or sine or cosine for that matter, of angles. So the tangent x, or tangent of an angle, is by definition the ratio of the sine of that angle over cosine of that same angle. Okay? The other function is called the cotangent, and that's how we spell it. And we write it as cotangent of x is equal to the ratio of the cosine of that same angle x over the sine of that same angle x. Okay? And we also have two additional trigonometric functions. One is called the secant, S-E-C-A-N-T, and we write it as the secant of x of an angle is equal to 1 over the cosine of that same angle. And the last one is called cosecant, and it's spelled as such. And we write it as CSC. The cosecant of x is equal to 1 over the sine of that same angle x. Okay, so those are, in addition to the sine of x and the cosine of x, the 6 trigonometric functions for now. Okay, so let's think about how we would evaluate. Let's start with the tangent of, say, 30 degrees. Okay, and so recall that the tangent of x is, by definition, equal to sine of 30 over cosine of 30. So all I really need to do is find the sine and cosine of 30 degrees, take their ratio in, bada bing, bada boom. Okay, so in the same way I always have, start with my unit circle. I want really the sine and cosine of 30, so I'm going to rotate 30. Hypotenuse is still, always will be 1. All right, I'm going to drop that altitude. All right, 30, 60, 90 triangle. Hopefully this is getting comfortable for you. Side across from 30 is 1/2. Side across from 60 is root 3 over 2. And we are establishing that the base root 3 over 2 is the x value, or the cosine, and the height, 1/2, is the y value, or the sine. Okay. So now I'm just going to use these, right? So the sine of 30 is 1/2. Right, the y value of my terminal point, the height of the triangle. The cosine of 30 is the x value of my terminal point, or the base of that reference triangle. Okay? So the tangent of 30 degrees is the sine of 30 degrees over the cosine of 30 degrees, or 1/2 over root 3 over 2. Now we just have to remember how you figure out what the heck that is. So I'm going to keep the fraction on top. I'm going to multiply by the flip version, the reciprocal of the denominator. Right? That's how we divide. That's what dividing looks like. Okay, and now I multiply top times top, and I get 1 over root 3. And because now I have an irrational number in the denominator, I have to rationalize by multiplying by 1. And the form of 1 I choose is root 3 over root 3, because then top times top is root 3, and bottom times bottom is just 3. Okay, and that is the value of the tangent of 30 degrees. Let's take a look at another problem. And what if I asked you to evaluate the cosecant, whoops, that's a little sloppy, sorry. The cosecant of, let's say, 2 pi radians. Okay? So, just as I normally would, I first want to kind of think about, well, what on earth is 2 pi radians, right? Let's think about what that angle is in degrees, something's more familiar, right? So remember that because pi is 180, then 2 pi is 2 times 180, so 2 pi is really just 360 degrees, right? Okay, so what we've been establishing is that sometimes it's helpful to change those radians to degrees, just so it's more familiar to us. Okay, now I'm going to rotate because I want the cosecant. Oh, well, wait a minute, cosecant, we have to ask ourselves, well, what is it? Well, by definition, it's 1 over the sine of that same 2 pi radians. Okay. So really what I need to do is figure out what the heck sine of 2 pi is and put it under 1. and that will be the cosecant of 2 pi. All right, so starting at 1, 0, I need to rotate, right? How far do I rotate? 2 pi radians, right? 360 degrees. And I wind up my terminal point right back where I started. All right? Remember the y value of the terminal point is the sine of the angle that got me there? So the sine of 2 pi, therefore, is 0. And since the sine of 2 pi is 0, that means the cosecant of 2 pi is 1 over 0. And ruh-roh, therefore, it just does not exist. Okay? So, sometimes because we have denominators now, we can have secants, cosecants, tangents, or cotangent at particular values that will not exist, right? But sometimes they will. Okay? So by definition, we have 4 new functions: tangent, sine over cosine, cotangent, flip that, cosine over sine, secant is 1 over cosine, and cosecant is 1 over sine. Okay? We'll use these tomorrow in class. Have a great night. Bye-bye.